Chapter 1. The Beginning. The car pulled up slowly in front of the house. Midnight cloaked the street in stillness, quiet and cold, except for the hum of the engine and the distant bark of a dog. "Thanks for the ride, buddy," Zeke said, reaching for the door handle. "No problem," Ryder replied, his voice tinged with concern. "But you sure you'll be okay? I mean, your dad's probably gonna freak." Zeke gave a half-hearted chuckle. "Nah, he's chill, everything will be fine, and thanks again, really." "All right, man. See you soon," Ryder said before driving off, his taillights dissolving into the dark. Zeke stood at the gate watching his friend vanish. The house loomed before him like a silent threat. Lights off, curtains drawn. He took a long breath and stepped forward. As he entered the house, the hallway light clicked on. His father was already there, standing still in the middle of the room like a statue, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "You know what time it is?" his father asked, his voice low but brittle with anger. Zeke glanced at the floor. "Yeah, I know." "Then why are you coming home this late?" The voice rose, piercing the silence. "I was with a friend, okay? It's not a big deal." "It is a big deal when you ignore my calls and come sneaking in like a damn thief." "I wasn't sneaking," Zeke muttered. "I just didn't want to wake anyone." A door creaked upstairs. His father took a step closer. "You live under my roof, Zeke. You follow my rules. If you're gonna keep doing whatever the hell you want, then don't bother coming home." Zeke's gaze flicked toward the staircase. For a second he thought he saw someone watching. A shadow pulling back from the railing. He didn't need to guess who it was. He stormed off, brushing past his father and slamming the bedroom door behind him. Collapsing onto the bed, fists clenched, chest heaving, he stared at the ceiling, unable to calm the fire boiling in his veins. On the shelf across the room, a small frame caught his eye. His mother's photo, a soft smile frozen in time, forever warm, gone for 8 years. He had only been 10. A tear slipped down his cheek. "Nothing's been the same since you left," he thought. "Dad moved on, married her, but I never did." His alarm buzzed at 8 a.m., but he'd already been awake. He hadn't slept a second. In the kitchen, he made breakfast in silence. His stepmother was there, sipping tea at the table, scrolling on her phone. She didn't even look up. She never did. "Morning," he mumbled. She replied, not even blinking. He took his plate back to his room and ate alone. Again. After his mother's death, his father remarried just a year later. The woman had moved in like a storm. New rules, new routines, new everything. Then came the baby boy. The fresh start. Zeke became background noise, an afterthought in his own home. She was always watching, never outright cruel, but something about her felt wrong. She smiled when his father scolded him. Her silence was loud. He hated them, all of them. It was Sunday. Not that it mattered. Zeke had taken a gap year after high school, and most days felt the same. That afternoon he met up with Ryder again. They hung out for a bit at Ryder's house before heading to the club, a place Zeke had grown to crave. It was the only place he felt alive. Music thundered. Bass shook the floor. Lights flashed like lightning. People moved in chaotic freedom, no judgment, no expectations. Zeke lost himself in the rhythm. He wasn't Zeke here. He wasn't the neglected son or the problem kid. Here he was just another body in the crowd, free, reckless, untouchable. He danced, laughed, and drank. For once, he didn't feel broken. Until, "Oh shit," Zeke gasped, suddenly still in the middle of the floor. Ryder looked over. What happened?" "What time is it?" Ryder checked his phone. 12:07. "Shit, I'm late again, let's go." "Chill, bro, it's not a big deal." "It is a big deal," Zeke snapped. "Shut up and come on." Minutes later, Ryder's car sped down the dark road. Zeke sat low in his seat, heart pounding. "I'm cooked," he whispered. "I'm so freaking cooked." "Relax," Ryder said. "We're almost there." "Just drive." They reached the house at 1 a.m. sharp. Zeke stepped out. The street was dead quiet. The air felt heavier than usual. "You sure you'll be good?" Ryder asked one last time. Zeke hesitated. "Yeah, I hope so." Ryder drove off, leaving Zeke alone in the dark. He walked up to the front door. Locked. He knocked softly at first, then harder. "It's late, I get it, just let me in." Nothing. Then came the voice, calm, cold, emotionless. "Go away, Zeke." Zeke's pulse spiked. "Just open the fucking door before I break it." Silence. He slammed his shoulder into the door once, twice, and still nothing. Then, sirens. Red and blue lights flashed across the walls. Tires screeched. Officers leapt from the patrol car, shouting commands. Zeke froze. "You've got to be kidding me," he whispered. "He called the cops on me?" His father appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, no expression, no regret. "Take him away, officers," he said. As they grabbed him, Zeke shouted, "I hate you, you hear me? I hate you!" And then he saw her, standing just behind his father, his stepmother, calm, arms folded, a slow, satisfied smile curving her lips. She didn't say a word. She never needed to. Zeke stared at her, the truth hitting like a slap. It's her. It's always been her. As the officers dragged him to the car, he looked around. Lights flicked on. Doors opened. Faces peeked out from windows and porches. Neighbors, strangers, watching, judging. Whispers floated through the air, tangled in the static of the police radio. But none of them mattered. What burned hottest was the humiliation, the betrayal, the truth, and the woman behind the man he used to call Dad. Inside their house, she asked, "Isn't that too much?" Zeke's dad raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean, too much?" "Calling cops on your own son?" she replied, disbelief in her voice. He shook his head with a faint smile. No, you don't understand. Calling the cops was just a cover-up." Her eyes narrowed. "A cover-up for what?" He smirked. "You'll find out soon. Hand me my phone." She hesitated but reached for his phone lying on the table and handed it over. He dialed a number and said calmly, "They've taken him. Now he's under your supervision." Then he ended the call without another word. For a moment, silence filled the room. She stood frozen, staring at him, her mind racing. Under whose supervision? Who took him? Nothing made sense. Her pulse quickened as she watched Zeke's father lean back in his chair, expression unreadable, as if everything was going exactly according to plan. Chapter 2. Two paths cross. Zeke sat on the cold metal bench inside the dimly lit holding cell, his back against the wall, legs stretched out in front of him. The stale air smelled of sweat, cheap disinfectant, and regret. He glanced up at the clock. The second hand moved painfully slow. "When am I getting out?" he finally asked, his voice dry but edged with irritation. A nearby officer, lounging behind the desk, didn't even look up. "Soon," he muttered, casually scrolling through his phone. Zeke frowned. "Why am I even in jail?" The officer smirked and shook his head. "Shut up, kiddo," he said flatly, still focused on his screen. Zeke clenched his jaw but said nothing more. The silence in the station stretched on, broken only by the buzz of fluorescent lights and the occasional murmur of a radio. 2 hours later, footsteps echoed down the hallway. A different officer, older and less annoyed, approached the cell. "Let's go," he said, unlocking the door. Zeke stood without a word and followed him toward the exit. As they walked, the officer glanced at him. "So, why were you in there?" Zeke didn't answer. His lips pressed into a thin line. The officer gave a small nod. "It's all right if you don't want to talk, but remember something. You're 18 now. One wrong move and it won't just be a holding cell next time. It'll be a real jail." Zeke stopped walking for a second, then muttered under his breath, "Won't happen again." The officer raised an eyebrow. "That so?" "Yesha," Zeke said louder this time, anger lacing his voice. "Because I'm not going home again." The officer looked at him, understanding flickering in his eyes, but he didn't say anything. He just nodded slowly and opened the exit door. Outside, the night air was waiting. Zeke stood outside the police station, the night wind tugging at his sleeves. He looked down the street, the city stretching in both directions, endless, empty, uncaring. His hands were cold, his mind louder than ever. Where the hell am I gonna go? He checked his pocket, a phone. No money, no plan. For a while he just walked, through alleys, across silent roads, past the glow of gas stations and closed stores. And then, a name floated into his head like a small light in the dark. Ryder. His thumb hovered over the call button. What if he says no? What if he thinks I'm using him? He sighed, rubbed his face, started to put the phone away, and then brought it back. Screw it, what do I have to lose? He tapped the call. "Yo," Ryder answered, upbeat as ever. Zeke paused for a beat. "Hey, it's me." "Zeke, damn, where have you been?" Zeke forced a laugh. Long story. Listen, I need a place to crash just for a few days. There was silence on the line, just a second too long. Then Ryder answered, softer this time. Yeah, man, of course, you're always welcome here. Zeke exhaled. Thanks, bro, really. Ryder's place wasn't fancy, but to Zeke it felt like safety. A messy room, a shared pizza, game controllers, music playing too loud. For a moment it felt like the world outside didn't exist. For 4 days things were decent. They played games, shared old stories, and even laughed a few times. Ryder didn't ask questions, and Zeke didn't give answers. It was unspoken, a temporary break from the chaos. But by the 5th day something had changed. Zeke noticed Ryder avoiding eye contact during breakfast. His voice is quieter, his mood is heavier. That night Zeke overheard muffled voices from the living room. He pressed his ear to the door. You need to tell him to leave, Ryder's mom whispered, firm but clearly stressed. He's not some punk, Ryder said, trying to defend him. We don't know that, his dad cut in. He was in jail, Ryder. We didn't sign up for this. This isn't a youth hostel. Zeke backed away from the door before he could hear more. The words were enough. The next afternoon, Ryder finally said it. They were in his room, controllers in hand, but neither really playing. Ryder sighed, stood up, and leaned against the wall. Look, man, this sucks to say. He wouldn't meet Zeke's eyes. But you can't stay here anymore. Zeke looked at him deadpan, not surprised, not angry, just tired. It's not me, all right? I tried talking to them. My parents are freaking out. They think you'll bring trouble. I told them you wouldn't, but you know how they are. Zeke stood slow and calm. It's fine. Zeke, you did what you could. Zeke glanced around the room one last time. The posters, the pile of empty bottles, the life he couldn't have. As he reached the door, he stopped. Thanks, Ryder, for everything. Then he stepped out into the street again. One more place he no longer belonged. It was daytime when Zeke left Ryder's home. The sun was high, too bright for how heavy he felt inside. His feet moved but without direction. He wandered, block after block, street after street, but not once did he even think of going home. Pride, ego, rage. Call it what you want, but Zeke would rather starve than knock on that door again. At first he didn't feel hungry, just empty. But hours turned into a day turned into 2. The dull ache in his stomach grew sharper, more violent. He checked his pockets for coins, nothing. Asked himself if he could do something, lift crates, sweep a store, anything. But he couldn't. He had no skills, no experience. Luxury had spoiled him. Now hunger wasn't just a feeling, it was a force, twisting in his gut, shaking his limbs, draining everything from his body. He sat on a park bench, head low, eyes dull. The world passed him by like he didn't exist. Then, out of nowhere, a hand entered his vision, holding a sandwich. Zeke blinked. A teenage boy stood in front of him, short, maybe 5'3" or 5'4", but thick with muscle like he worked with his hands. He had a strong, masculine face roughened by sun and sweat, but his eyes were kind, his voice was calm. You want some? The stranger asked. Zeke didn't say a word. He just snatched the sandwich like an animal, tearing into it, chewing fast, swallowing before the next bite even left his hand. You sure haven't eaten in days, huh? The boy said, watching him with a half-smile. Zeke kept eating, too desperate to care how he looked. The boy sat beside him and pulled out another sandwich for himself. They ate in silence. When they were done, Zeke finally looked up. Thanks, he muttered. You sure were hungry. Wish I had more of them, the boy replied, brushing crumbs off his shirt. Suddenly, he glanced at the sight across the street. Oh, it's time for work. See you soon. He stood up, jogging toward the construction site nearby. Zeke stood too, called out after him. Wait, what's your name? The boy turned his head with a grin as he kept running. It's Leo, he said. Chapter 3. Silent Wounds. Zeke walked toward the construction site, the afternoon sun blazing overhead, making the dust swirl around his boots with every step. The sharp clang of metal against stone echoed through the air as workers hammered and lifted, their grunts mixing with the distant hum of traffic. He spotted Leo already deep in his work, compact but solid, his muscles flexing with each heavy bag of cement he hoisted. Sweat trickled down Leo's forehead, but he didn't slow down or complain. Watching Leo's relentless effort stirred something inside Zeke. If he can push through this, why can't I? He thought, feeling the heat stick to his skin and the grit in his throat. Hey, can I help out, maybe get a little work here? Zeke called out, his voice a bit shaky. Leo looked up, wiping dirt from his brow with a grimy sleeve. You want to work? Talk to the boss. He's the one calling the shots. Zeke nodded, swallowing his nerves. He approached the boss, a gruff man with a permanent scowl etched across his weather-beaten face. The boss's eyes scanned Zeke quickly, then he barked, You think you can handle this? It's not for kids who whine. I'll try my best, Zeke replied, trying to sound confident. The boss shrugged, tossing a few bricks Zeke's way. Fine, don't slow us down. The work was brutal. Zeke's hands ached from the rough texture of the bricks. The sun's heat burned his neck, and every breath tasted of dust. His arms trembled, and his legs threatened to give out, but he refused to quit. Each heavy load he managed to carry felt like a small victory. Leo noticed. He saw the stubborn grit in Zeke's eyes, the way he kept pushing despite the pain. Hours dragged by. By 6 in the evening, the sky was painted orange and purple as the sun began to set. Their muscles screamed in protest, but their work was done. Leo clapped Zeke on the back. You did good today. Zeke shook his head, wiping sweat from his forehead. I could have done better, I'm still slow. Leo grinned, bumping his fist against Zeke's. Forget that. Be proud of what you pushed through today, but don't get comfortable. Keep grinding every day and you'll leave everyone in the dust. Before they could say more, the boss stomped over, slapping a wad of cash down. Not bad, but could have been better. He grunted, already turning away. Leo rolled his eyes, muttering under his breath. Man, that guy's always complaining like it's the end of the world. Zeke chuckled softly. Sounds like you hate the guy. Leo shrugged. Yeah, but that doesn't mean we stop, we just get better, whether he likes it or not. It was early evening. The street bathed in a warm orange glow as the two of them walked side by side. So, why are you doing this? Leo asked suddenly. Doing what? Zeke replied, glancing at him. You know, labor? Long story. Oh, well, then I'm not interested. Good for you, Zeke shot back with a smirk. Leo chuckled. So, where's your home? I have no home, Zeke said flatly. Leo frowned. I don't understand. Well, that's also a long story. So make it short. Zeke let out a sigh. My dad kicked me out. Why? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? I don't know, I just don't know. Zeke threw his hands up, his tone half annoyed, half amused. Leo laughed and shook his head. Forget about it. You started it, Zeke said. Well, yes, and now I'm ending it. They walked in silence for a couple of minutes. Then Leo spoke again. Well, where are you going to spend the night? I don't know, Zeke replied. Leo stopped, staring at him in disbelief. Hey, why don't you stay with me? You sure? Well, yeah. I don't know. Your parents might not like this. Zeke's mind flickered to Ryder, telling him to leave his house as he said that. I live alone, Leo said, almost proudly. Really? Yeah. Zeke grinned. Then let's go. They reached Leo's home, a modest 2-room place tucked at the end of a narrow street. It wasn't much, but it was clean. The TV lounge held an old, box-shaped television, its screen faintly dusty from years of use. A pair of worn, frayed sofas sat against the wall, their stuffing peeking out in places. Still, not a single item was out of place. So he's a clean, neat freak kind of guy, Zeke thought, a little surprised. Leo moved into the kitchen and began preparing dinner. The faint sizzle of oil soon filled the air. So, you live alone? Zeke asked almost shyly. Yeah, I told you before. Oh, right, sorry, never mind. Zeke wandered around the room, his eyes catching on something unusual, an old photograph on a small wooden shelf. It showed a much younger Leo, 5 years old at most, standing beside a tall man. The man's face, however, had been ripped away, leaving jagged edges where it once was. So, where are your parents? Zeke asked without thinking. Leo didn't look up. My mother passed away when I was born. He kept chopping onions, his movements steady. And your dad? The knife paused mid-air. For a second, the only sound was the faint hiss from the pan. Zeke saw the change in Leo's eyes, something sharp, like a door slamming shut. Sorry, Zeke said quickly, I shouldn't have asked. It's fine, Leo interrupted. though his voice carried a weight that said otherwise. He resumed chopping, each slice against the cutting board harder than the last. He abandoned me when I was 9 or 10, maybe 11, I don't remember. Zeke blinked, stunned. Why? I don't know. I've heard things, rumors, but the only thing I know for sure is he left me. That man in the photo, that's him. Leo's gaze flicked toward the torn picture. I didn't want to see his face anymore, so I tore it out. The words hung in the air like a heavy curtain. Zeke noticed something else then. Leo's hand trembled slightly as he held the knife, and his jaw stayed clenched long after he'd finished speaking. The room fell into silence, the only sound the slow, deliberate chopping of onions. Outside, a dog barked in the distance, then stopped, leaving the house wrapped in stillness and unanswered questions. Chapter 4. Echoes of the Past. The sun rose and Leo and Zeke went back to work, hoisting cement bags and stacking bricks under the blazing sky. By the time the sun began to sink, painting the clouds gold and crimson, their day's labor was done. They collected their pay and started home. Instead of taking the usual route, they chose a long, winding path for a quiet evening walk. The street was calm, shadows stretching across cracked pavements. Halfway down, Leo slowed his pace. A strange sensation washed over him, like a whisper from a place he had once known. The houses, the worn shop signs, even the distant scent of damp concrete, all felt uncannily familiar. Déjà vu, he thought. But this was stronger, heavier, like a memory pushing to the surface. Then he saw it. A massive plaza sprawled across the corner, only 4 stories tall but stretching over a wide plot of land. Its windows were dark, its doors chained, its walls streaked with neglect. It had been abandoned for years, a failed investment. The wealthy owner could afford to forget. No one bought it, no one fixed it, a flight of cracked stairs led down into shadow. Leo froze, staring into the darkness. Hey, what happened? Zeke asked, giving him a light shake. Leo blinked, startled. Oh, nothing, let's go. But as they walked past, a muffled noise floated up from the depths. Shouts, chants, and a dull, rhythmic thud. They stopped. What was that? Zeke asked, eyes narrowing. Without a word, Leo descended the stairs. Zeke followed. The air grew heavier, thick with sweat and smoke. Then the scene unfolded before them. A crowd packed tight under dim yellow bulbs, shouting and cheering in a frenzy. In the center, 2 shirtless men circled each other in tattered shorts, fists flying. It was an illegal fighting pit. Zeke's face lit up with a shocked, almost impressed grin. But Leo just stood there frozen, because in that moment memories he thought were long buried clawed their way back. Flashback, night, a restless electric night. The air was thick with the smell of sweat, blood, and cigarette smoke. A ring of shouting men formed around a dirt-floored fighting ground, illegal no doubt. Every yell, every stomp on the wooden planks, sent vibrations through the small boy standing on the edge. In the center, 2 fighters circled each other. One was tall, dark-skinned, his chest heaving, fists raised. The other, broad-shouldered, brown-skinned, and calm, moved with the ease of a predator. The crowd howled. The brown fighter feinted left, then cracked a right hook straight into the man's jaw. The impact sounded like a log snapping in 2. The dark-skinned fighter crumpled, motionless. The noise exploded, cheers, whistles, the slap of hands exchanging bets. People rushed forward, praising the victor. Daddy, Daddy, you were amazing. 9-year-old Leo pushed through the legs of the crowd, eyes wide with awe. His father knelt slightly, ruffling his hair while counting a thick roll of bills. Hey, buddy, you like that? Liked it? You smashed him. Leo laughed, throwing mock punches in the air, mimicking the fight. His tiny feet kicked at invisible opponents, and his father grinned. They walked home through a narrow, dimly lit alley, the echo of the crowd still ringing in Leo's ears. The night air was cooler here, but carried a different kind of tension. 3 shadows detached themselves from a wall ahead. Well, well, one of the men said, stepping into the light. Look who's walking around with a fat pocket, hand it over. Leo's father didn't even slow his pace. If you can take it, he said with a faint smirk, be my guest. The men exchanged glances, then advanced. His father stopped, his hand gently pushing Leo behind him. Stay behind me, kid. Things are about to get a little heated. His voice was calm. deadly calm. The first attacker swung a rusted metal rod. Leo's father sidestepped and drove an elbow into the man's ribs, following with a punch that split his lip and sent him staggering. The second lunged, but caught a knee to the gut so hard he folded, gasping. The third man tried a different approach, darting toward Leo. Leo froze, his little heart thundering. But before the man could reach him, wham! A roundhouse kick from his father smashed into the man's neck, dropping him instantly. Blood spattered the cobblestones. Two of the men scrambled to their feet, dragging the unconscious third between them, disappearing into the shadows. Leo stood shaking, tears welling in his eyes. This wasn't like the Fight Club, no rules, no referee, just danger, real danger. Hey, don't cry, what's wrong? His father asked, still catching his breath. Leo said nothing, tears sliding down his cheeks. Hey, it's okay, listen to me. But he kept crying. Leo! His father's voice was sharp now. Look at me. Leo's small eyes locked onto his father's. Listen carefully to what I'm about to say. Every day, every minute, every second is a battle. Everyone is fighting, maybe with fists, maybe in their mind. But only the strong win. The weak, they perish. Remember that. Until your last breath. That night would be the last real memory Leo had of his father. He remembered one more thing, his father's voice a few days later saying, I'll be back soon, buddy. But he never came back. Back to the present day. Leo lay in his bed staring at the ceiling. His father's words echoed in his mind, cutting deeper than ever. A single tear slid down his cheek. He curled up, eyes shutting tight, holding on to that memory like a wound that never healed. Then sleep took him. Chapter 5. The Iron Fist. It was noon, the sun blazing overhead, and Leo and Zeke were working hard at the construction site. Sweat rolled down their faces as they lifted bricks, hauled cement bags, and pushed wheelbarrows back and forth. The air was filled with the sound of hammers, machines, and above all, the boss's endless yelling. Move faster, you lazy bastards, the boss shouted, pacing around with his hands on his hips. What am I paying you for to sit around scratching your asses? Pick it up, don't act like old women. Every few minutes he barked at someone. You call that stacking bricks? My grandma could do better, useless piece of shit. You, don't drop that bag again or I'll shove it down your throat. The man wasn't just giving orders, he was spitting venom, insulting every worker like it was his favorite pastime. Zeke, trying to ignore him, leaned toward Leo as they carried a load together. His eyes lit up with excitement. Bro, last night was insane. That dude in the Fight Club, man, he beat the shit out of his opponent like, no mercy. People were screaming, throwing money. It was like something out of a movie. Leo kept stacking bricks quietly. Zeke nudged him. We gotta go again tonight. You can't miss this one. Leo finally looked at him, his eyes steady. We must go. Must? Zeke raised a brow. Damn, you sound serious. What's up with you? Leo gave a faint smirk. You'll see. Zeke shook his head, chuckling. All right, man. Whatever you say. By lunchtime, the two of them left the noisy site and sat on a wooden bench in the small park nearby. Zeke pulled sandwiches wrapped in foil out of his bag and handed one to Leo. Leo bit into the sandwich and nodded with a smile. These are delicious. Way better than what I make. Zeke smirked. Of course they are. I made 'em. Who else? Leo chuckled. No, seriously, where'd you learn this? Don't tell me you just woke up one day knowing how to cook. Zeke leaned back, proud. Honestly, from my chef at home. I used to stand in the kitchen watching him work, asking questions all the time. It was my hobby. I'd bug him till he showed me everything. Sandwiches, steaks, pasta, whatever. Leo raised his brows. Not bad. So you've been hiding skills this whole time? Zeke grinned. Guess so, I'm full of surprises. Leo laughed. Well, keep surprising me, I could get used to this kind of lunch. They both laughed, enjoying the short break. But just across the street, unnoticed by either of them, a black car was parked. Inside sat two men, Zeke's father behind the wheel, and beside him, the officer Zeke had met at the jail, the one who pulled him out. Zeke's father glanced at the park bench, his eyes fixed on his son. Troy, he said, calling the officer by name. Is he doing good? Troy nodded. Yes, sir. He's been working hard. Learning a lot lately. Zeke's father shifted his gaze toward Leo. And who's that? His new friend, Troy answered. He's living with him. Is that so? All right, Zeke's father muttered. But keep an eye on them. Okay, sir, Troy replied. He's in a good position now, learning a lot, Zeke's father said again, almost to himself. Yes, you're right, Troy agreed. You're doing this for his own good. Without another word, they started the car and drove away. Back at the construction site, the hours dragged on. Leo and Zeke, drenched in sweat, kept working nonstop. 5 hours later, the whistle blew. The job was done for the day, and the workers lined up to collect their pay. Leo grabbed his money and stepped outside the construction site for fresh air, waiting for Zeke. But inside, when it was Zeke's turn, a scene unfolded. Zeke stretched out his hand. The boss shoved a few bills into it, $40. Zeke frowned. Where's the rest, my full pay? The boss smirked. That's all you get. You didn't work well today. I did work well, Zeke snapped. What are you talking about? How many bricks and cement bags did you carry? How much work did you do, huh? The boss asked, crossing his thick arms. 100, plus 5 cement bags and some other stuff too, Zeke said firmly. The boss laughed mockingly. You gotta do at least 200, that's the standard. What? Nobody carries that much. Ask the others, they carried the same as me, Zeke argued, his voice rising. Because you're a weak ass, the boss sneered. Then his face twisted into something darker, crueler. If your mother had come to me before your birth, you'd have been strong as a bull. Instead, she must have spread her legs for some useless bastard. Figures why you turned out weak. The words hit Zeke like a blade. His face turned red, veins bulging in his neck. Without thinking, he lunged forward and grabbed the boss's collar, but the man was a mountain. With one massive hand, the boss clamped Zeke's throat and shoved him hard to the ground. He kicked Zeke in the stomach, once, twice, again, each kick sending shockwaves through his body. Workers stood frozen, watching. Not one dared step forward. Outside, Leo heard the commotion. He rushed back inside the site. His eyes widened at the sight. Zeke curled on the ground, coughing blood, the boss towering over him with another kick ready. Oi, stop! Leo yelled, charging forward. He shoved the boss with all his strength. The man staggered back but barely felt it. Leo knelt and helped Zeke up. Are you all right? Before Zeke could answer, the boss's boot smashed into Leo's back, knocking him face first into the dirt. Are you nuts? Leo shouted, forcing himself up. The boss, fuming, slapped him across the face. The blow sent Leo stumbling backward. At first, Leo held back. This was his job, his pay. Fighting here meant losing everything. But after that slap, something snapped inside him. That's enough, Leo muttered under his breath. He stepped forward, his fist cutting the air. With a crack, his punch smashed into the boss's face, breaking his nose instantly. The giant collapsed like a sack of bricks, unconscious before he hit the ground. The entire site went silent. Dozens of workers stood frozen, jaws dropped, staring at the small, quiet guy who had just sent the monster to sleep. Next chapters drop soon. Subscribe so you don't miss it.